long-lasting friendship between Biden and Xi won't save Hong Kong. Despite US President Joe Biden and the First Lady's friendly greetings to those who celebrate the Chinese New Year a few days ago, which was targeted at Chinese Americans and Pacific Islanders living in the United States, Biden has strategically sent the world a message that China and the US are building up their power bases as strategic rivals, more so than ever, as their ideologies are just too different. But no one can say for sure that a big confrontation between the two superpowers would happen. What people might be afraid of is that the US strategic patience would mean nothing much is happening, and the US won't be looked up to as a strong defender of democracy. Joe Biden was on CNN a few days ago. In a short but well-prepared speech, he showed his concern about what had been going on in Hong Kong. Joe Biden and President Xi are old friends. They had known each other for decades before they became presidents. Joe Biden also mentioned on the CBS network recently that he and Xi had around 24 to 25 hours of private meetings when he was the vice president of the US, which was an official disclosure of how much time they spent together diplomatically on record. The bigger question is that with the confrontation approach adopted by Trump and a strong condemnation made by former Secretary of State Pompeo of human rights abuses in Communist China and ethnic genocide in Xinjiang right before he assumed office, how would the Biden administration confront China with regard to Hong Kong, Xinjiang, Tibet, and Taiwan? Realistically and practically, what does strategic patience put forward by Biden actually mean? Joe Biden and Xi are old friends, but Xi rose to power during the last decade. Xi is now not the man Biden once knew, which was Biden's comment during the US presidential race last year. He even called Xi a thug. It is not difficult to understand that thugs go around beating and robbing people. And if Biden still believes that his old friend has changed so much for the worse, would he go tough on Communist China? Martin Lee, founding chairman of the Democratic Party, and Anson Chan, former chief secretary of Hong Kong, met Joe Biden in April 2014 before Occupy Central and the Umbrella Movement, which took place in late September 2014 and turned into a 79-day Occupy movement. As memories are still fresh, it should not be difficult for Joe Biden to recall Hong Kong being unique, and the people have striven for freedom and democracy for long in the once famed international city. Would the US champion the principles of freedom that are supposed to be universal for most people, while Hong Kong is under duress and employ a more confrontation approach to China, indirectly salvaging Hong Kong from the worsening situation? Less than a year ago, during the 2020 US presidential election, Joe Biden said that if China tried to impose sanctions on American citizens and companies, he would impose swift economic sanctions on China, provided he was elected. Well said. Whereas in Hong Kong, the latest news is that the sale of the US consulate's $330 million real estate property in Chosin Hill finally got approved by the Hong Kong government under the permission from Beijing. One way to look at it is that US government's $330 finally got released, and now the US has a big gift to China, a more tolerant approach to Confucius Institute's operations at US universities and high schools. Under the Trump administration, the Confucius Institute was perceived as covert influence operations designed to sway Americans in favor of being positive towards China, and Trump tried to ban all of his operations in the US. We all know that Trump lost the second term of his presidency, and under the Biden administration, the US will make more concession to China. Back to the Hong Kong issue. On January 6, 2021, 55 pro-democracy activists in Hong Kong were arrested, but granted bail eventually. It had been one of the biggest crackdowns on Hong Kong's democracy since the handover in 1997. All got released except one, but all have to report to the police on a regular basis. All their passports were confiscated, which means they are not free to leave Hong Kong. One who got arrested was John Clancy, an American human rights lawyer who has been living in Hong Kong for decades. Would he and the other 54 be charged with attempting to overthrow the government under the highly controversial national security law, while what they did was merely to run their own primaries? Will the US intervene more in regard to Hong Kong for a strong economic interest in the city? What if a major US investment bank CEO based in Hong Kong is arrested and detained and alleged to be breaking the NSL of the Hong Kong SAR? We all know by now that the national security law proffers Beijing and the puppet government in Hong Kong unfettered power to detain anyone before trial. If the strategic patience set by Biden means the US turning a blind eye to what is happening in Hong Kong and being a bystander, then hopes for democracy in Hong Kong will be gone, and the rule of law in the city will be replaced 100% by the rule of law with Chinese characteristics. No one is protected and secure